The new iPads got announced today. Really interesting to me, They keep coming out with iPads with higher and higher specs in terms of like the processing power, maybe they're even thinner, but I think they always forget to address the core problem with the iPad, which is that at the end of the day, they're really more aimed at tossing to your kid to watch YouTube than to actually do work on. And it's not the fault of the specs, it's the fault of the software. And of course, this is a very subjective view because I'm not someone who does work on an iPad. I actually tried it very briefly with an old iPad Pro and a keyboard, and I think while it was very interesting and to some extent very refreshing to be able to just tap my screen, I had a lot of issues with it because it was so limited just through software. And that got me thinking, how do we determine when we need new gear? A lot of my friends are involved in some kind of hobby that involves putting down some amount of cash. You got sculpting, you got music production, you got painting, you got PC gaming, you even got weightlifting, right? All of these things depend on you purchasing gear or renting gear with different levels of quality and price. I think wanting new gear is a good thing. It basically keeps you on your toes, in my opinion, regarding what is possible, what are the horizons of your hobby, and where you can even go in terms of how far you can push yourself. Let's take listening to music, for example. Now, I collect headphones, earbuds, speakers, all the different kinds of music listening methods. And to me, this is what I would define as a library of gear. I think this is a very important distinction to make when you're sort of collecting gear for your hobby. How you're defining it and how you're using that gear. So this would be a library of gear. I have some other ones, I can't really pick them up right now, but I think what makes this so useful to me is that all of these headphones and IEMs speakers that I have, they all have very different tunings. And as a result, they all have different uses, right? I can use my R70Xs for editing sound. I can use my Anandas, for more, straight up listening to music. And I have my IEMs for possibly more portable stuff and a slightly different tuning again. All these things serve a different purpose in my library. And I think the nice thing about it is that these uses are not exactly set in stone because tuning is so subjective and often my tastes will change, through time. I sometimes get bored and sometimes I just want to switch. And after a few months, I'm like, okay, I've listened to all of my music like this again. I'm just going to switch back and it all feels so fresh to me. So that's, I think, the uses of having a library of gear is that you often don't really feel the need to upgrade because you've really picked out what actually works for you in a way that doesn't necessitate further purchases. I'm happy with my gear. I'm happy with my music listening, choices. I think the only thing I could even upgrade here would be like my receiver, I guess. But even then it's like, is it worth it? I don't really think so. I think my music listening would be exactly the same. It just has a new receiver. So in this case, I don't really suffer from FOMO. I don't really get the fear of missing out on a new headphone, a new IEM, a new release, because I'm happy with what I have. I don't really think there's a way of me going up. This is what I define as endgame for gear. This is where you literally look at it and you say, hey, this is all I got. This is all I need. This is perfect. I don't see another way up. I myself have made the mistake of thinking that I hit endgame with gear that I purchased before really using it for an extended period of time. And I think that's a very big mistake because when you're in a hobby like, for example, keyboards, you don't really know how it's going to work until you've used it for like a couple of months at least, maybe, I don't know. But you do need a significant extended period of time before you can effectively judge what you're happy with. I'm friends with a keyboard guy, and this guy, he spends tons of time like lubing and stabilizing every single key on all of his boards. It's an incredibly meticulous hobby in terms of that because you have so much work you could do if you wanted to, while it not being especially necessary. So it's really up to you. And after, hanging out with him and sort of seeing his perspective on keyboards, I've come to realize that I think headphones and keyboards, and maybe a few other hobbies that I'll get to, have the same issue where they basically stop listening to the music and start listening to the headphone. You stop really listening You stop using it primarily for its purpose, which is to enjoy music or to help you more efficiently type in a more enjoyable way, or play video games with a better stabilized keyboard, or maybe it helps you, actuate the buttons faster. All of these things are designed to help you enjoy your hobby. It's not designed so that you can press the keyboard and hear the button and go, that sounds so good, because that's not really what the purpose is here. Now, if you do that and you do have fun doing that, there is nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying we got to be honest with ourselves about what we're buying these things for, because these are purchases. These are real purchases that we have to make and real decisions that we have to make regarding a hobby. Right after I bought like my first real pair of enthusiast level headphones, I was like re-listening to all my music and it was great. But I also found that I was falling into that rabbit hole really easily of like trying to pick out all the differences that I was getting from my music with the new headphones, as opposed to really just enjoying the music in, I think, a better, more focused, clearer, better sounding way. They're designed for you to better do your hobby. They're not designed for you to continually press them so that you can hear the sound and go, this sounds so good. And there's nothing wrong with that too. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't lie to yourself about it. So how do we tell if we actually need a new purchase? Let's get broken gear replacements out of the way. If you need to get a new thing because it's broken, get the new thing. I'm not like, what do you want me to say here? Okay, it's totally justifiable. Go grab a new thing. Maybe treat yourself too, because you've been holding on to it until it probably fell apart in your hands. Now, the real meat and potatoes of this, to me at least, is the vertical upgrade and the horizontal upgrade. Now, the vertical upgrade I think is very easy to describe. Essentially, you're taking what you have and basically improving its capabilities directly. Let's take my camera, for example. Previously, I was shooting on a camera that could do 1080p, and now I'm shooting on a camera that can do 4K. That's a vertical upgrade. That's essentially just a straight up improvement to its capabilities. I'm not really changing what I'm doing, I'm just improving it. And then, of course, you have the horizontal upgrade. So, for example, I previously had an NEX5R camera. It was a Sony camera, and then I got a Fujifilm camera. And in some ways that was a vertical upgrade because it was a more premium, expensive camera, but it also did things way differently than my Sony camera. It had these film simulations, it had all this other kind of stuff. And in that case where, essentially the sensor is the same, I'm really getting the same like resolution of image. It is more of a horizontal upgrade because I'm sort of changing what I'm doing because I'm more interested in trying out something new here. I'm trying out the Fujifilm workflow as opposed to doing my Sony workflow. And that changed how I worked, and I think it did it for the better as well because, I enjoyed it more and it was faster and etc, etc, etc. That's what's important to define for yourself when you're trying to purchase some new gear. Is it a vertical upgrade or is it a horizontal upgrade? And they both have different ways of sort of judging if you need them. For the vertical upgrades, let's take this for example. I want to get a 4K camera because I want to be able to crop. I want to be able to have digital stabilization, which this camera does. I want to have a USB-C cable so that I can plug it into my MacBook. All of these things are only really accessible through a vertical upgrade through just improving the camera that I have. Originally, my plan for this video was that I was going to get a newer camera and sort of showcase it because I want to improve my video capabilities even further. I want an actual professional digital camera. This is more of a vlogger camera right here. And I was really struggling with it. I'm going to be honest here. I want to be able to shoot short films by myself. I want to be able to produce stuff by myself with a better camera than this because, this camera has a lot of issues. I'm not going to lie. But I also think that I am not good enough of a YouTuber or a content creator. I hate using that word. Or perhaps maybe just an artist or a videographer, etc., 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 to justify that purchase for myself. It was a real struggle, and I'm still kind of eyeing other cameras that are sort of lower in price point that I can really justify to myself because I still want to do that. But I don't know, it's hard. I'm not saying there's like a certain answer to this stuff. Now, when it comes to horizontal upgrades, for example, my Fujifilm, that was really easy to me because I think I was in a rut with my workflow. And I'm not saying that you should buy a new camera or buy new gear whenever you're stuck or have writer's block or whatever, but sometimes it can shake you out of it. And I think that when I reached sort of the extent of my Sony camera's capabilities, and I was kind of like, well, I see a lot of flaws here that aren't really the camera's fault. They're more just that we kind of want different things. This sounds like a relationship. I kind of wanted something else. I wanted something that could be a little bit more colorful, a little bit less static, more dynamic, more colors, more stylized. And that ended up being the XT1. So I would recommend the horizontal upgrade if you want to change how you work. And I would recommend the vertical upgrades if you want to improve your already existing workflow. Honestly, I was kind of working through that myself. I think as someone who just nonstop collects gear, it's a really tough question. And I don't really think I know all the answers to it, but I think it's important to know because people are always releasing new gear. You have the new iPads. This iPad is supposedly the thinnest yet. I believe it. It has this new OLED screen, the tandem OLED, crazy specs, M4 chip. You don't even see that in a laptop. That's insane to me, by the way. They're putting the laptop chip in the iPad before they're even putting it in the laptop. Why? Okay. But, and it's difficult to, I guess, understand. It's difficult to parse because, for example, I'm trying to figure out what iPad to get, a younger kid who's going into college right now. Not my kid. I don't have children. I still have to figure it out. And what do they need? What do they need? What do you need? It's a question that you always have to ask yourself, especially if you're involved in an artistic pursuit, a hobby, some kind of technical trade, all these kinds of things. What upgrade do you want? Vertical or horizontal? Thanks for watching.